Most of Week 12 is in the books, and it started on Thursday with a triple header on Thanksgiving. It started with a clash between the Bills and Lions, and what a game to start the holiday. The Lions came to play and nearly beat the Buffalo Bills with a score of 28-25. Lions fans of all fan bases I know are sick of moral wins and won actual wins, and I can't blame them. But I think this is the best of both worlds for Detroit. With the Rams having a down year this year due to a multitude of factors, there's a good chance the Lions have two top 10 or top 12 picks in the 2023 NFL Draft to already add to what's a rebuilding team. This team nearly beat the 9-2 Vikings in Minnesota earlier this year. They nearly beat the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 1 and nearly beat the Buffalo Bills on Thanksgiving. When you add two more first-round picks to this team, along with the progression of already good players on this team, along with getting Jameson Williams back, I absolutely love the future of this team. They are dangerous moving forward. As for Buffalo, get number 14 the ball when it matters most. Period. Buffalo is going to be fine in the long run, and they play the Patriots and Jets in the coming weeks, both of which are winnable, and they very well could be 10-3 when they play the Dolphins in Western New York in the middle of December. An NFC Beast clash took place in Dallas as the Cowboys won 28-20. The biggest takeaway for me within this was the Giants are going to be a good team in the long run. With the injuries they had entering this game and from an overall roster standpoint, they were not in the same tier as Dallas in this game. Their top four receivers were Darius Slayton, Richie James, Isaiah Hodgins, and fullback Chris Myarick, compared to CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Jake Ferguson, and Dalton Schultz. They have exceeded any expectations they had entering 2022, and there's a good chance they still make the playoffs. As for Dallas, I think they are legitimate contenders. Everyone that hates the Cowboys gets their jokes in about them not going to an NFC Championship game since 1995, but I think that could change this year. There's not a lot of weaknesses to this team, and pass rush translates to the postseason in a big way. Having who I think is the defensive player of the year on the roster in Micah Parsons is going to be huge in January, and I think they are a very dangerous team moving forward. Patriots Vikings is up, and Mac Jones had a hell of a performance. Pats fans were upset with the Hunter Henry callback touchdown, and I would be too, but what is a catch is an entirely different discussion. I understand being annoyed with this loss because of that, and a running into the kicker penalty on Pierre Strong, but Mac Jones looked like a franchise quarterback in this game, one that you can win a lot of games with. Mac has faced some criticism this year as entering this game, he had 4 touchdowns to 7 interceptions on the season, but had a very good game, and that would be an understatement. As for Minnesota, every time they play on primetime, it's going to be magnified because of Kirk Cousins. Period. And how would Kirk respond against the Bill Belichick coach New England Patriots? He responded extremely well as he threw for 299 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Justin Jefferson is either the best or second best receiver in football, with Tyreek Hill being the other player in this conversation. Kirk and Justin's chemistry is unreal, and this was a huge, huge win for the Vikings as they improved to 9-2. On to Sunday, we go to discuss the Texans-Dolphins game, and the two biggest things for Houston is, unfortunately, Cleveland beat Tampa, which will lower their draft pick from the Deshaun Watson trade. And the other is, I understand Dameon Pierce hasn't been playing well recently, but why would you only give him 5 carries in this game? To me, they didn't give him a chance to get going, and it doesn't change the outcome by any means, as much as I don't understand this decision. And Bryce Young, please start apartment hunting in this space city. Miami beat a bad team and did what they were supposed to do. They got on top early and took Tua out long before the game ended, which I was very happy to see because they didn't need to win this game 51-6 over the Texans to make a statement. A very good game all around for Miami, and we are all thinking about not only Teron Armstead, but everyone else that went down on Sunday, whether it's for a week or a season-ending injury. We are heading quite a bit up I-95 to Landover, Maryland to discuss the Falcons and Commanders. Taylor Heineke will not have a lot of 350-yard, 3 passing touchdown games in his career, but he keeps the Commanders in every game, and they win when he starts. Brian Robinson also had his best game as a pro, and the run game was working for both teams on Sunday. A big shout out, or as Commanders fans would probably rather hear, a big left hand up to Daron Payne for the deflection which led to a Kendall Fuller game-winning interception. For Atlanta, this is obviously a tough loss, and unfortunately you guys are known to have these types of tough losses, but this team wasn't supposed to compete heavily this year. They're 5-7, and they need to start Desmond Ridder for the rest of 2022. Mariota is not the guy and will not lead Atlanta to a Super Bowl. See what you have in Ridder. Broncos Panthers is up, and there could be an entire video on Denver alone. There are countless things wrong with this team. There's not a lot of positive things to say at the moment, but the one I will say is a shout out to Mike Purcell for yelling at Russ and saying what the defense has felt for the entire season. They are down to 13.8 points per game. The best quarterback for this team in the post-Peyton Manning era has arguably been Trevor Siemian. Their draft pick, as I record this, would give Seattle a top 3 pick. For Carolina, as crazy as this sounds, at 4-8, they are still in contention to win the division. Are they going to? In my opinion, no, but there were some positive things to take away from this game for their future. The run game, even with Deontay Foreman as their back, looked good against a very good defense. That will help their quarterback next year in a big way, and Sam Darnold outplayed Russell Wilson. A solid win for Carolina in what is a tanking/rebuilding year. From I-85 to I-40 to Nashville, we go to discuss a rematch of an AFC divisional playoff game last year between the Bengals and Titans. The first thing I want to do is credit the Bengals defense for knowing the challenge heading into the game. Derrick Henry had 17 carries for just 38 yards, and insert a Fetty Wap meme here, but the Bengals defense, and specifically DJ Reader, had a day. They are looking like a playoff team, and it showed. And T. Higgins stepped up in a big way in a playoff-type game with Jamar Chase inactive. The good news for Tennessee is they can clean this type of loss up. They were 0-3 in the red zone against Cincy, and that is something that will not happen again for the rest of the season. Mike Vrabel will make sure of it. They're going to win the AFC South and more than likely win a playoff game, and hopefully get to see this team again in the middle of January. Bucs Browns is up, and for all of the good players the Bucs have on the roster, they've been underwhelming this year, and a reason for that is coaching. Todd Bowles played not to lose against Cleveland, and a lot of the time when you play not to lose, the team ends up losing, and this is exactly what happened. They had a 4th and 2 where they wouldn't attempt a 55-yard field goal or go for it, so they took a delay of game instead. You don't trust the GOAT to get 2 yards, whether it's a check down to Chris Godwin or a back, or to throw a jump ball to Mike Evans, and you don't trust the kicker either, so we just give Cleveland the football. An awful decision. For Cleveland, the opportunity is slim, but it's there. You traded 3 first-round picks for Deshaun, and if they run the table, they would probably get into the playoffs. It doesn't matter how you do it, but beating the Bucs and Tom himself is a hell of a confidence booster. I made a video a few weeks ago on why they are struggling, and there were certainly times in this game where they did, but let's see what the Browns are truly made of. Ravens-Jags is up, and this one didn't start until 1:25 Eastern because of a weather system, but what a game-winning drive from Trevor and the Jags. Lawrence went 29 of 37 for 321 and 3 scores against a secondary led by Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, with Zay Jones and JaMychal Hasty as his leading receivers. As cliche as this sounds, there's merit to it, but imagine when the Jags get him legitimate weapons, or even when Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley can take the field at the same time. Are they propelling this into a 10-win season? No, but with Doug and Trevor, the future is bright. For Baltimore, the telling statistic is 6 red zone possessions and 4 field goals. It's better to get this type of loss out of the way in late November versus January, but the Ravens have 4 losses and in all 4 games had big leads. Bad clock management was more than evident in this loss as well, and this should not have come down to an absolute Hail Mary of a field goal attempt from Justin Tucker. Bears-Jets is up, and this is about what I expected with Trevor Siemian starting. They were playing a very good defense on the road, and arguably a Super Bowl caliber defense, without their best player and lost by 21. It's going to happen. The true unfortunate part is the injuries and all that occurred within this game. For the Jets, I have one takeaway. It's a big one that impacts a player that they wanted to be the franchise in the worst way, but it's Mike White time. In one game, Mike White threw one less passing touchdown than Zach Wilson has all season, and they put up 31 points. Garrett Wilson had 95 yards and 2 touchdowns and also looked good. It's Mike White time, period. Rams-Chiefs is up, and for the Rams, this is quick. Allen Robinson was announced he's done for the year, and there's no point in playing Stafford and bringing Kupp back with this year gone. They won a Super Bowl last year. Give McVay and Les Snead a chance to work all of this out. When you go all in and your stars get hurt on a star-filled team, this is the result. For KC, this was an easy look in the next week game as they play Cincy in Cincy next week. Good for them for taking care of business, and it wasn't pretty at times, but as 15 and as Big Red would say, a win is a win. Staying in the NFC West, it is Saints-Niners time. The 49ers are a better team, and it showed. This may be the most telling fact from this game, but Andy Dalton was the Saints' leading rusher with 21 yards. New Orleans got within the 5-yard line twice and were still shut out. San Francisco, like Kansas City, won a game against an inferior team, and a win is a win. This proved to be much more critical when a team in their division in Seattle lost to the Raiders. The usage of Jawan Jennings is a perfect example of you never know what is coming with this team, and this is why they're such a tough team to beat. And speaking of the team in the Pacific Northwest, the Raiders beat the Seahawks in a thrilling game with a score of 40-34. There's a crowd that will say pay running backs, and there's a crowd that will say to not pay running backs. But Josh Jacobs has earned a second contract. They have back-to-back wins since losing to Jeff Saturday's Colts, but I want this team to get to at least 7-7 before we start any of this talk with the Raiders. Good team win. For Seattle, with that high draft pick you have from Denver, my biggest takeaway from this game is use that on Jalen Carter or Will Anderson if it remains that high. Not getting to the quarterback consistently is a problem, and it showed in this game. Chargers-Cardinals is up, and this game is a perfect representation of the direction each franchise is headed. The Chargers came back and won in Arizona, and Justin Herbert had a big comeback win. There's people that think he is not a clutch quarterback, but this was a big win for LA, and good for them. For Arizona, they're in a very unique situation, and I don't mean that in a good way. Cliff routinely has success in the first halves of seasons, then chokes down the stretch, but the success never came this year. He's done, and so is general manager Steve Keim. I will never understand why a one-time wild card appearance translated to a contract extension, but it needs to be done. Fire Cliff and Steve Keim. And on that positive note, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. We also go live on TikTok regularly. I recommend checking that out, and the link is in the description. Until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.